Hello, everybody. We have a special guest today for one of our interview pieces. This is the Deadline, ROC.com. And yes, we are at Spot Coffee. We had to find a spot to do the interview at. But yes, we have a special guest here today. Our interviewee, please introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Rivera, and I am the lead tenant organizer for the citywide tenant union, and I'm also a board member for the Center for Youth.
Very nice, very nice. So the citywide tenant union, can you just describe what the citywide tenant union here in Rochester, what it does?
Yeah, so the citywide tenant union, we are a grassroots organization, and our main focus is helping tenants keep their housing and know their rights, and to just be more good, better, productive tenants.
Okay, cool. And how did you get into this type of work? If you want to talk a little bit about your background and you know some of the things that kind of inspired you to get into this type of work.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, I lived over on Thurston Road, and we were owned by CEN Properties at the time, and me and other tenants were living in very extreme, horrible conditions, and the ceiling in my apartment had fallen on my child. At the time, she was 6 months old, so that kind of like sparked a fire in me that probably would spark any parent. So like since then, I helped my building go into a rent strike. We changed over ownership, and since then, I've been a tenant advocate in the community and just helping people in my neighborhood or just in the city in general learn their tenants' rights and try to work with them to continue living in their housing or just find like better quality housing in general.
Yeah, wow. That would definitely spark a whole lot of people into action on your 6-year-old.
She's 6 months old, yeah.
6 month old, yeah. I stand corrected. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's crazy. So that's understandable. So yeah, there's always like this moment that gets people involved with the activism. And so in terms of the type of work that the citywide tenant union does, what are kind of some of, if you can speak to it, some of the types of activism or demonstrations or protests, like what do those look like, if you can share one that you want to share?
Yeah, so like for instance, I lived on Thurston, so one of the examples, we went on a rent strike, but we didn't know how to go into that. So before I got involved with Citywide Tenant Union, we had members that were already a part of the group come into my building and teach us about our tenants' rights, like how to get a hold of code enforcement, how to present evidence in court according to the issues that we have in our apartments. And some of the activism, pretty much we play like the mediator role in our tenants' situations. And sometimes we get put more pressure on them, like we do rent strikes, blockades if we need to. One of our members, actually, she did a eviction blockade in her house that she owns. So a lot of that work definitely fits into our group, and those are like some of the things that we do in our group.
Okay. And so those are some of the things that are activism, let's say perhaps externally. And so if you look at things maybe internally, there may be like giving counseling tenants and checking out their property, seeing like what form of advocacy that you could provide. If you could expand on those types of your advocacy, say a little more about that.
Yeah, like currently I'm working on a unit on the east side, and this tenant, her apartment is like out of control. It's got an infestation. So we're talking about roaches and mice. As soon as I walked into her house, you could just see the roaches crawling all in her walls, roaches falling from the ceiling. She even opened her cabinet and her refrigerator, and there was an infestation of roaches just crawling out of there. She's up for an eviction, but she is going to be safe because on the property there's needs to be a C of O, like I forget the term of it, but it needs to have that type of certificate in order for the landlord to have grounds to evict the tenant. So right now she's good because there's no C of O, and this landlord is really trying to get rid of the property instead of trying to fix the property. So what I did was I went there, I looked at the property, I took pictures and videos, I sent it to code enforcement through email. That's some of the things that we do. We'll try to get a hold of an inspector to come out there ASAP. We also hold the inspectors reliable to do something with the landlord, like give him a fine or cite him in some type of way, because those are violations. And we also look at past violations and how long that took for the landlord to fix those issues. So like ultimately that's the type of stuff that we do, and then we push code enforcement and the landlord to do it. 9 times out of 10 it's a positive thing. They get things done pretty fast. Most of the time we have to literally like push for the landlord to do something. Sometimes they lose their properties because the property looks so bad that it's unmanageable, and the landlord loses his license that way too.
I see. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Sounds like some great shielding-like activism for the tenants. Very important. Very important. So let me ask you a few questions that are unique to the deadline. One of which is, if you had a message to give to the tenants out there, and say I was a tenant and you only had 20 seconds or whatever, what would you say to those tenants out there? Just some piece of advice, something helpful.
Get your paperwork together, especially if you have lost your job or any type of income during COVID, because right now a lot of tenants are at risk of evictions, and the only way that they are protected is with the Tenants Safe Harbor Act, and that's until January, and that is pretty much like a small moratorium that will help the tenants keep their housing. So pretty much you need to have information that you lost your income during COVID, and that's going to help you fight it in court. So my advice to tenants is to get your paperwork together and make sure that they are legit and be ready. Like, I don't want to scare people, but there are evictions happening right now, and that's like the main thing that the judges are looking for. If you are claiming that you can't pay your rent because of COVID, they need to have that information. So please have that, because it will definitely help you in the long run.
So many people believe that evictions cannot take place until January 1st. Is that accurate, or is there something else going on?
That's not all the way accurate. Like I said, that moratorium for January only qualifies for tenants who can provide proof that they lost their income for COVID. Other than that, there's no moratorium. The moratorium was up in October 1st, and now housing court is open. People are getting evicted. It's a serious situation right now. I know in the media it says that the moratorium was extended. That's not true. Only the safe harbor was extended, and that's it.
Okay. And there is also the CDC affidavit, correct?
Yes.
Is that assist in any way?
Yes and no. There's still like some holes in that the team and I are still trying to work out and trying to figure out how we can get it passed locally, like with full, like protections. But right now, it's a lot of confusion and stuff. But there's no moratorium right now, not for a lot of us anyway.
Okay. And is there a difference between holdover tenants and non-payment cases as far as the moratorium?
Yeah. So like non-payments pretty much are tenants that are not paying their rent with no real excuses. And holdovers are tenants who are holding their rent because of certain excuses, like they're living in bad conditions, or because they did lose their income and they can't afford to pay their rent.
Okay, cool. Are those cases treated kind of differently as it relates to the moratorium?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And the other thing that I was gonna put out there is, typically with the deadline ROC, and I don't got too many more questions, it's kind of like one of the last ones, but with the deadline ROC, we always ask activists what is your activist style? So, some activists, they're out there in the streets, they're protesting with the sign. Some activists, they're writers. Some activists, I don't know, they're like actors or whatever. So, everyone has their own activist style. How would you describe your activist style?
Well, I am very passionate with my work, and I love my community very, very much. So when I am called to help a tenant, I take it as it's an emergency situation. So when I go there to the property, I go hard. I am absolutely there for the tenant. I feel like at that point when I'm being called in, the tenant has no other sources to go to, so they call us, and that means that it's an emergency situation. I need to be there. So far my work is I show up, I get mad, I get loud, and I make things move. That's my tactic. I haven't changed it in the past 3 years because it's been doing pretty well. And I go there, and my main focus is to speak to the property manager or a landlord. Out of those two, if nothing works out, then I'm gonna have to go harder and harder and make more noise and get louder until actually something moves and happens.
That's real. That's real. Sounds good. Sounds good. And I'm sure a lot of people appreciate, all that you're doing along with the citywide tenant union. And of course, this is here to amplify your voice. So, if there are tenants that are in need of some advocacy, some support, willing to learn more about their rights, can those folks reach out to you?
Of course, absolutely. You can either catch me on my Facebook page, or you can go on the Citywide Tenant Union's page and you can message us through there. Or like I said, you can go on my personal page. My name's Barbara Rivera. You can always email me anytime. It's barbrivera5@gmail.com. I get in contact with people relatively fast, and I'm always available to talk and give people advice if they need it.
All right, cool. Any shout outs before you take off and before you wrap up here?
Shout out to Free the People, because they're doing amazing work, and Citizen Action and Vocal New York. You guys are amazing.
All right, cool. So thank you, Barbara Rivera, for your interview. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your great advocacy. All of the above is appreciated by myself, Diallo Payne / Craig Carson, as well as the DeadlineROC.com. So, thanks again. You're much appreciated. And that is all we have today for the DeadlineROC.com.